When do you need it?
Towards the end.
When you're ready for it, let me know. I'll pull this over, and then you'll just you'll share my screen, and then you'll pull up the Excel document. See Excel right there?
Okay.
Okay. So you'll just check that button and hit OK. Which file? Is it this one?
It should just be one, yeah.
Okay.
And also, some point where I don't know if Tom's on or not. Tom Julian is remote right now.
We are having issues with audio on remote presenters.
Okay.
So if he would, I will communicate with him to type, and I will share any comments he has. Is he presenting much of this?
Actually, we need to switch over to him at some point because he's got.
That wasn't tested.
Oh.
I notified every remote presenter that they needed to test with me. So
Okay.
Can you present the majority of it? Like we can get comments from him, but we're not going to be able to get him.
Well, we don't have a copy of the actual AWB on here.
That wasn't arranged.
Okay. Okay, I'll just let him speak to the slide then.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Neal, and online we also have Tom Julian. We're a pair of the developers working for the data management architecture group, working on implementing the architecture analysis management framework into various systems to be used. Oops.
You need to change slides, Neal?
Yeah.
Bottom, on the bottom left, there's a forward and advance. You see it? Must be hidden by here.
Oh, okay. No, there it is. Okay. Okay, so this morning, real quick, I want to just briefly touch on our modularity goals of the framework. Then Tom is he's not going to be able to have a demonstration because of the situation with the remote. So he'll just talk to the Eclipse plugin architecture, and then I'll go back to talking about how we use this with Microsoft Office applications. So one of the primary goals of the architecture and management framework is to provide modularity and specifically loose coupled objects that are available for customization by the individual projects. The idea, the original idea behind the framework was not to force everybody to do things the same way. It was to come up with the basic structure of what we do at IV&V and come up with a framework to do that that could then be used by the individual projects in a customized way. So one of the ways to enhance that customization is to come up with a modular system where people can basically plug in what they need to use on their projects. The simple idea behind the AMF is that what we do at IV&V as analysts is we make assessments about artifacts. Now, artifacts are basically any bit of data that's being sent by the missions that we're analyzing. Generally, when we say artifacts, people think of the entire document. But for the AMF, the artifact is actually any really element of that artifact in addition to the artifact. So the document artifact is made up of smaller artifacts, smaller individual artifacts. They could be paragraphs in that document. They could be requirements. They could be code blocks from source code. Basically, all the information that we're getting from the mission that is going to be analyzed by us and is going to be that we're going to make assessments about. That is what an artifact is. So the idea is that we as IV&Vers are assessing those artifacts and making certain comments on them, or we're creating issues, or we're simply just verifying that say a trace from a design to a requirement to design is accurate. So the whole loosely coupled thing is driving our design decisions. The tiers themselves help to be able to separate the data from the user interface so that the data is able to be stored atomically, independent of how we look at it. I'm not expecting you to be able to understand these diagrams, but it's just a matter of we're using standard patterns for all of them. So any artifact or any assessment, for the most part, the patterns are going to look the same for those domains. So the tracing, the types, all the components of the various objects are going to look pretty similar. And that's in order so that as you or as your understand how the data is flowing, how the information is moving, how the coupling works, so that you can quickly adapt to the system rather than being forced into using one's way. It's a way that you can customize what you're doing. Map is supposed to do. 2 points. One is in the early development of the AMF concept. What we were doing was looking for ways to use the resources we already had. of systems and subsystems and software that the facility had already made an investment in. So we looked at what we had and said, how can we make this work together better? The other factor that went into our original thinking was just to admit that the data right now is fragmented. There are various okay. Finally, Don touched a little bit about customization. One of the whole ideas behind our modularity system is that framework. And this is our customization domain. So each of the three main business layer objects, the artifacts, the assessments, and actions are here. And through using different types the types are the first way of creating customization. You get to define on how to present that type of information and how that information can be manipulated by the business layer. The heart of the customization strategy are these two classes, the custom tag and the custom data. And there's a custom tag within the custom. Trying to get down to the most atomic level with the custom information of just simple, whenever possible, just native types that are common in any system, strings, you know, and the word tag reveals its lineage. That when we came up with this, we were working on setting up the XML schema for here. So essentially what we were coming up with was ways to quickly store the data which could then be used as in so all the basic metadata about the tag is here, and that resides with the various type objects. So there's a collection of these tags within the type which contain the unique information about that type. It's going to be carried with that type. So when there's an actual instance of, say, an artifact, where did we get an artifact? Over here. There's a collection of that we're trying to store is here. So that collection of data is carried with the artifact itself. And that allows it to be stored, and that allows database, rather than building custom tables, we have one table that just holds all the custom data, which basically explains that the data item, kind of hard to explain. The data understands itself. It has the information. It contains the information about how to present itself for any user interface. Got it. Button C. Okay. So there are two main plugins for the Eclipse platform, and we'll talk about that later with Tom. And there's a Visual Basic for Applications, which is the native language of Microsoft Office products. So we have already, for VBA, we have already implemented all of the various domains. There's projects, which right now is not extensive, but as we move towards a centralized data warehouse, being able to differentiate projects is going to become important. Participants, which is basically, could be the analyst making the assessment. It could also be the mission itself, which generates artifact data. And additionally, trace these objects to each other to form networks so that you can visually see how various artifacts and how various assessments are connected to each other. Then there's the data layer components, which is simply if there's data stored somewhere, we need a way. Pretty much what we've done is in VBA, we've tried to implement something similar to what you would have in Java, a map object, which is basically a key value relationship. And we create these maps, which basically tells the business layer where to find all the various elements for the objects that it's putting together in whatever data source it is. So it might be a result set coming back from a SQL query, or it might actually be an Excel spreadsheet itself which contains data. And this is one of the paradigm shifts that Don was talking about. Right now, most of us use spreadsheets not only as a way of manipulating data, but actually as a way of storing the data itself, which isolates the data from anybody else who wants to use it. One of the ideas behind DAMF is to be able to use Microsoft Office products more as user interfaces which interact with a data source ultimately, hopefully, the data warehouse, rather than be the data source itself. And that takes a shifting of thought. It took me a while to understand what the difference was. And understanding that there is a lot of data trapped in spreadsheets that's not available elsewhere. Also user interface components, both to manipulate the data and also to present the data. We write a lot of reports. We have dashboards on the various web services that we use. So we can interact that way. And I'm going to show you, just pop over here.
You want to share your screen, your Excel spreadsheet?
Okay.
And I have comments from Tom whenever you're ready to hear them.
Okay. Let me just quick. Okay, so this is our standard, everything in the kitchen sink, as Don calls it, spreadsheet. And you can find it in Confluence in our library section under the VBA, in the VBA section of our libraries. The important part is, as far as today's discussion, are these two tabs at the end. The AMF object map. So this will tell the VBA code behind where to find these different objects that go into the AMF, the artifacts, the assessments, the actions, and the projects. Now you don't need it all, but you can do it all if it has to. If you have a set of assessments that are of artifacts which you haven't imported, you can go ahead and just import that spreadsheet. And the idea is that you would just copy the spreadsheet that you use for normal analysis into this workbook and then tell it where all these things are. So this creates a map that's working in the background, a collection of key and values. Now for today's demonstration, which I'm not going to run the whole thing, basically what I did, to the front here, there we go, is rather than use our standard artifacts spreadsheet that came with it, I made a special one that contained information, but it also contained parent traces. This is just sort of made up information that I have, but it would be for a design where you're tracing design elements to parent requirements, or the project itself, and this is not the latest version, but anyway, the project itself would create a trace matrix that we're all familiar with. So that you can not only import all of the data about the design document, but you can also include the traces for that. On the on the original sheet itself, artifact traces are a separate tab. But in this one, this AMF artifacts tab combines both the traces and the artifacts that are being imported. So, and this goes rather fast. Actually, you really don't see anything of the processing. Oh, okay. Let's looking for a couple. So normally you would only have one spreadsheet open and all the macros would come up in one thing. Here's the script I'm looking for.
You filter it out. Just have to.
Right. And we have security settings on, so I can't really show you how this macro works. But essentially, what it's going to do is it pops up a couple dialog boxes which ask you what you're looking to import and where you want to put the results. Usually, we just suggest you put it on in a folder on your desktop. And it will generate the SQL scripts needed to put this information into a database. So let's cancel out of that. But this is what I really wanted to get across today. Is, okay, where we go?
Reopen back and enable it.
I probably could, but I'm probably running out of time, and we want Tom to have some comments about the AWV. Is this map structure in the back here, where all these other tabs are just places where you can put the information you want to put in there. Right, as much or as little as you want. There are certain required fields that if you're trying to import an artifact, you have to have certain fields checked out. But you could come up with and the projects will often send these, one huge spreadsheet with just incredible amount of information. And we can just tell the map where to find the various pieces of information, and it will generate scripts to get that information into a database. Right. Yeah, and reproduce the traceability matrix that it might represent. So is Tom on the line? Or?
He's on the chat window that I have open with him, and he starts with the action navigator is a configurable list of actions. An action in the analyst workbench speak is analogous to an issue in a bug tracking system, essentially a task which may require an action or a series of actions. The analysis workbench can support multiple action repositories. Currently, we support local actions, which are managed with the analyst workbench database, and remote actions, which are managed by an repository. Jira is an example and is our first integration. The Jira integration lets you configure the action navigator for a number of queries. Queries might be status equals open and priority equals critical as an example. Jira items may be viewed and edited in an embedded browser window, and this lets you remain in the analyst workbench cockpit and effortlessly, easier than it is to say that word, integrate with external content. Actions are integrated into the existing analyst workbench artifact context and traceability graph views. should have control.
Well, my pointer, my back and forth thing has gone away again. That's okay.
Do you want to advance? You just tell me advance or reverse.
I want to go back a couple slides to show the workbench itself.
That one?
Yes.
Okay.
That one. Okay, so this is the Eclipse plugin based analyst workbench. So each of these views, if we were demonstrating, it would be easier. Each of these views can be decoupled from the workbench itself and become its own window. And you can also sort around. But anyway, the main part is there's a navigation. So this pane here is the assessment records. This pane here are the artifact records, and this pane here is the actions. And right now it's pulled up the JIRA actions. So we're using the JIRA interface that we developed. If you pick a specific assessment or action or artifact, the information about it will be up in this area, including the trace information to other parents or children. This area is the graphic. So you can pull individual artifacts or traces here, and it'll show them as nodes and edges in a graph. And then we also have a search facility that you can search through your artifacts and your assessments and your actions for keywords, or show me all of the assessments being done by me. So,
Where do you need to go?
I think that's it. Yeah, I don't know how much time I have left.
Yeah, well, we are actually out of time.
That's why I thought.
So if anybody has any questions for this team,